Welcome to Unspoken Affairs. In today's video script, my name is Sarah Mitchell, and for most of my life, I believed I understood my son Ethan in a way no one else possibly could. From the very first moment I held him in my arms, swaddled in the thin hospital blanket with his tiny face pressed against my chest, I felt an invisible thread tie itself between us. His presence was more than love. It was a deep, unspoken connection that I thought nothing in this world could break. I knew the language of his laughter, the rise and fall of his cries, and the gentle hum of his breathing when he fell asleep in the crook of my arm. I memorized the curve of his smile, the sparkle in his eyes when he discovered something new, and the way his hand instinctively reached for mine whenever he felt uncertain. Ethan wasn't just my son. He was a piece of me, and I carried the certainty that no one could ever know him as well as I did. But there are moments in life when the ground shifts beneath you. Moments when you suddenly realize that the person you thought you knew better than anyone is still, in some ways, a mystery. For me, that moment came on a warm summer evening, when the air smelled faintly of freshly cut grass and the sky melted into streaks of orange and violet. Ethan looked into my eyes, and in that single gaze, I saw something I had never noticed before. It wasn't dramatic or loud, but it was powerful, an unspoken truth pushing to the surface. He was 14 then, walking the fragile line between childhood and adolescence. One moment he still clung to the little boy I remembered, curious, affectionate, eager to share every detail of his day. The next moment he was quiet, distant, lost in thoughts I could not reach. For weeks, maybe even months, I had noticed the shift. He had become more reserved, his words fewer, his silences heavier. Sometimes I found him staring into the distance, his brow furrowed, as if the weight of the world pressed down on his young shoulders. Other times, he would retreat to his room, closing the door not with anger but with a quiet finality, as though protecting some fragile piece of himself. That evening, I was in the kitchen preparing dinner. The sauce simmered gently, filling the air with a comforting scent of garlic and basil. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint buzz of cicadas outside, and the clatter of my spoon against the pot created a kind of background rhythm. Ethan walked in, his step slower than usual, his presence heavier. He sat at the table, not saying a word at first. His hair was messy from basketball practice, his shirt still damp with sweat. He looked older somehow, his shoulders broader, his jawline sharper, his voice already deeper when he finally spoke. I glanced at him and felt my heart ache. How could he be changing so quickly, slipping through my fingers like sand, yet still carry traces of the little boy who once clung to me with unshakable trust? "Mom," he said softly. His voice was low, but it carried a weight that immediately pulled my attention. I turned, wooden spoon in hand, and when our eyes met, I froze. There was something in his gaze I had never seen before. Fear mixed with resolve, vulnerability wrapped in strength. My breath caught. Something was coming. "What is it, honey?" I asked, trying to keep my tone even calm, though my pulse had already quickened. He didn't answer right away. His fingers fidgeted against the edge of the table, drumming lightly, betraying the storm brewing inside him. He looked down at his hands as though searching for courage in the small lines of his palms. The silence stretched, filling the room until even the ticking of the kitchen clock seemed louder. My mind raced through possibilities. Was he in trouble at school? Was he being bullied? Was he keeping a secret from me? Or was this just the chaos of teenage emotions that sometimes overflowed without explanation? Finally, Ethan lifted his head. His eyes were glassy, holding back emotions he hadn't yet found words for. "Mom," he whispered, "I need to tell you something, but I don't know how." I set the spoon down carefully, my hands suddenly trembling. I wiped them on a towel, pulled out the chair beside him, and sat down close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his tense frame. My hand found his, and I gave it a gentle squeeze. "Ethan," I said softly, "you can tell me anything. You know that, right? Nothing you say will ever make me stop loving you. I'll always be here listening." He nodded, his lips pressing tightly together before he exhaled a shaky breath. "I know, Mom, but this feels different. Like once I say it, things won't ever be the same again. His words struck me like a bell, clear and heavy. I understood then that we were standing at a crossroads. It's one of those rare and defining moments that separate life into a before and an after. Whatever he was about to say had the power to reshape the bond we had built, to alter the way I saw him or the way he saw me. But more than anything, I knew this was his leap of faith, his decision to let me into the part of himself he had kept hidden. "Whatever it is," I whispered. My voice steady though, my heart thundered inside my chest. "We'll face it together." His eyes softened, shimmering with tears that clung stubbornly to the edges. And then, slowly, carefully, Ethan began to speak. He told me about the confusion he had been carrying, about the feelings he didn't quite understand, and the thoughts that sometimes scared him. He admitted how lonely it felt to keep everything inside. How heavy it had been to wear a mask of normalcy while his mind swirled with questions he couldn't answer. As his words spilled out, halting at first but gaining momentum, I realized that my son wasn't confessing a mistake or a crime. He was opening a window into his heart, showing me the vulnerable, unguarded version of himself that he had hidden away. The more he spoke, the more the tension in his shoulders eased. He told me about nights he couldn't sleep, worries that seemed too big for someone his age, and dreams that felt both exciting and terrifying. I listened, every word carving itself into me, every sentence deepening my understanding of who he was becoming. At times, tears slipped down my cheeks silently. Not because I was sad, but because I was proud that he trusted me enough to bare his soul. Proud that he had found the courage to speak. I realized then that knowing my child didn't mean knowing every thought he had or every step he took. It meant creating a space where he could unfold layer by layer, and trust that he would be loved through every revelation. The sun had long dipped below the horizon by the time his words slowed. The kitchen was bathed in the soft glow of the overhead light, the sauce long forgotten on the stove. I pulled him into my arms, holding him tightly, feeling his heart beat against mine. He was taller now, stronger, but in that embrace, he was still my little boy. We sat there for what felt like hours, speaking, listening, sometimes falling into silence, only to start again. And with every moment, I felt the bond between us not weaken, but strengthen. Because love, I realized, isn't about clinging to the version of someone you once knew. It's about meeting them where they are again and again as they grow, as they change, as they become. That night, Ethan's secret didn't break us. It didn't create distance. Instead, it wove us closer together, teaching me that sometimes the greatest act of love is simply to listen without judgment, to hold without condition, and to remind someone, whether a child or adult, that they never have to walk alone.